People obsessed with their morning routines make less money than people obsessed with making money. People work, sacrifice, and then they get rich. Then they fill their time with weird routines. Then they forget how they got rich in the first place. And then they tell other people the weird routines made them rich rather than what they actually did, which is whatever it took, not some 3-hour morning routine. There was a kid who DM'd me who said, hey, I've been working with this business coach and he has me doing a morning routine. Could not make this up. After I do my grounded walking, I do my gratitude journal, I do my list for the day, I do my ice plunge. It's like, after I do that, it takes me about 3 hours in the morning to get all that done. He's like, I barely have any energy to like actually get work done. I just said, I'm gonna give you the biggest hack in the world. Cut the 3-hour morning routine, replace it with 3 hours of work, and I promise you'll get more done. And he messaged me back a week later. He was like, dude, it changed my whole life. I'm getting so much done now. I was like, what a fucking concept. If you work more, more gets done. And I love just looking at this. It's like, what actions do I have to take to get what I want? Anything that's not that is a distraction from it, period. If it takes you 5 minutes to feel 20% better and you can actually measure that your output goes up by 20%, then cool, that makes sense. So I'm not against doing things. I'm against doing things for the sake of doing them. And so one of the biggest issues with learning and education, as humans do it, is that we make correlations to things that are approximate, they're close to one another. Tall people play basketball. I should play basketball to get tall. We make these very mistaken correlations, but what we should look at is what it took to get there, not what they're doing now. So the better advice is to look at what someone was doing on their way up in the grind, mirror that more than what they're currently doing at the top of the mountain. Many people have bad childhoods. Some of them become successful. And so that's why trying to figure out why something happened, I have spent less and less of my effort trying to do that and only look at what actions created a result rather than looking at intention or anything else that's amorphous that can't be measured. 30 isn't the new 20. It's an excuse to take 10 years longer to accomplish the same thing. You can die when you're done. Until then, keep going. In your 20s, you're young, you can fuck around, it doesn't matter because life is long. Number one, that assumes that you're not gonna die. If you're in your 30s, you're someone in your high school class who died. And it's not just the drug overdose people, it's the people who got shot, got in a car accident, had a weird brain cancer. I've had all of those things happen to people that I went to high school with. In one way, I think it's a little bit arrogant to assume that you're just going to live, because it means you can waste your life, and I wholeheartedly stand against that. The second translation around that I think has hurt a lot of people is that they can do what I would consider dead-end jobs. And that means jobs that don't have any direct correlation to your personal growth. It has nothing to do with pay. You can work for free and grow more than anyone else. This is not saying that you need to go into a season of earning in your 20s, but you do need to be setting yourself up for growth, in my opinion, if you want the big ultimate outcome. And so most people that at least consume my stuff, they want to be better. They want to grow. They want to get in better shape. They want to have better relationships. They want to have a better business. They want to be, bigger in every way. They want to expand. If you spend the decade of your 20s not growing and not investing in your skills and your education, if you do that in your 30s, you're going to be further behind than someone who starts in their 20s. You're going to be a decade behind. Nowadays, there's kids who are starting out their entrepreneurial journey when they're like 13. And so when they're 23, they're Mr. Beast. He's young, but he's actually pretty old in business terms, because a lot of people start their business journey in their mid-40s. And so if they're 50 years old and started their business 5 years ago, Mr. Beast has twice the amount of time in the ring under the bar that they do. For me, I want to start my time clock on paying down my ignorance debt as fast as humanly possible, because the debt is a constant for everyone. All of us are trying to pay down that debt as fast as we can, and taking a decade, arguably one of the most productive decades of your life, and not paying down that debt, you just sit in such a deficit compared to your peer group. Some people might watch this and be 30 or 40 or 50 and be like, well, shit, I took the wrong advice from the wrong guy. Guess what? You're gonna die, it's not gonna matter anyways. Big deal, whatever. The best time to do this was start when you were 10 and get born to an entrepreneurial parent who got you in their small business and invested in all of your education as a homeschooled student and taught you all the ways of the Jedi. But you probably didn't have that. And so the second best time is to start now, because let's play out the alternative. How much does it serve you to just say, I guess I have no chance? Okay, die. There's nothing left for me to do. I will relinquish the remainder of my living days and years because I choose to lose. And that's a choice. And if you want that, that's cool. The idea of quitting simply because you're older, because you didn't do something, everybody doesn't do things that they know they should be doing now. And that's because you're always going to know more in the future than you do in the past. And so it's a faulty premise to say that I'm not going to take action today because I didn't know something in the past. Everyone doesn't know anything in the past. But all you can do is take action with what you know today. And by taking action, you have learned. And so you actually take one step to making your first payment on ignorance debt through actions, not words. I mean, I think a lot of people know the story of the 30-year-old barista. If you love that, then do it. You know what I mean? Like, I have no judgment on what you do. If you don't love that and you wish you were doing something else, that's what I would say I have a problem with, which is, why are you not doing it? And I think diving into that, which is usually some sort of fear, some sort of anxiety, some sort of label that they believed that isn't true from someone else. And just trying to zone in on like, why am I not doing it? And taking 2 steps closer to it, not just like, because I don't know what I'm doing. Well, duh, okay, neither does anyone. What are you doing about that? Just defining it to what actions am I gonna take as a result just makes life a lot easier. What does figure it out mean? It means that I'm going to read 2 hours a night on a specific subject until I feel like I can make a decision within 30 days on what I'm gonna do. Great. That is something I can do and I can measure whether I did it or not. You have seasons of earning and you have seasons of learning. I had this kid who reached out, he was 18 years old, said he was gonna edit videos for us. When he came in, he said, I want $100,000 a year as an editor, as a starting job. His reasoning was that somebody else had offered him that amount of money. I want to make this statement because I think it's logical and also stupid. If you're optimizing for your earning potential in your 20s, you're missing the fucking point. This individual had the potential to be on a team that has a massively, globally recognized brand in terms of media, and from there, learn how to be way better than they currently are, and then become a creative director at another company or at one of my portfolio companies. That is the career path. And instead was comparing that to something that he would make $100,000 a year and be the only person in the department, and no one there knew anything about media. And so he wasn't going to learn, he was going to earn. Whereas somebody who got into the big leagues and learned 10 times the skill set, then 10 years later is either starting a multi-million-dollar company or heading up a multi-million-dollar division in a billion-dollar company. And the potential is so much wider because 10 years from now, someone says, what's your experience? It's like, well, I worked at a real estate firm and I made their social media content. Who gives a shit? Whereas if you're like, I worked for one of the biggest media companies out there, everyone will give you the job offer, and that is when you can choose to earn over learn. But people make the trade too soon because they compare themselves to people on social media and think that the 0.0001% is the norm. Whenever you choose to earn rather than learn, you're right hooking life and saying, I'm no longer gonna develop and this is good enough. And so if $100,000 a year is actually good enough for your long-term goals, then do it. But I would imagine that it probably isn't for what you really wanna do long-term. And I'm using hundreds, 6 figures as a placeholder, whatever number you want. When you make that decision that you're no longer gonna learn, that's when you stop growing your potential to learn more. I say this because that's what I did. I had a white-collar consulting job for defense contracting. I had a top-secret clearance. I had everything that looked good on paper, space, cyber, and intelligence. I had a 2 to 3 year path clearly for getting an MBA at an Ivy League school, and then decided to drop all of that and start working for $13 an hour at a gym after I graduated magna cum laude in 3 years from Vanderbilt. I know what I'm asking people to do, and I'm not asking them to do something that I wasn't willing to do. And I think that I might have even a more extreme version that most people are having to live with. Trying to say like, well, I can't figure out what I want is a really paralyzing place to be that I think a lot of young people are in. Is like, I want to find my passion. But the big misnomer is actually a language issue, which is that people say they want to find their passion rather than they want to build it or create it or learn it. And so like, I can promise you that if you're good at something, you'll like doing it. And the only way that you get good at something is by doing things that you suck at and doing a lot of it. So let's say you make $50,000 a year. It costs you $950,000 a year not to know how to make $1 million a year. So how much is that education worth? Answer, the difference. The difference between $1 million and $50,000, which is 950 grand. If you learn how to make $1 million, the education is worth the difference. This is why education and information are the most valuable things that we can know. Elon has like lost everything and then gained it back. Many of the best entrepreneurs have stories where they lost it all and then gained it back. And so how is it that they can go to zero back to $1 billion, where somebody starting at zero can't get there? Because they didn't lose the education. They didn't lose the learning. They had a bad role. And sometimes in business, you do make bets on markets, and sometimes they don't shape up, but you didn't lose. And a lot of times you actually gain in experience so that the next bet pays off even bigger. Everyone gets this wrong. The most expensive thing you ever pay for isn't your car, it isn't your house, it isn't your insurance. It's the information that you don't know but should. I mean, how many things can you think of right now that if you knew 10 years ago would have materially changed your financial outcome, your relational outcome, your physical outcomes? Probably a lot. What is the value of that information? Borderline priceless. And so the idea that we wouldn't invest in paying down that debt of ignorance that we owe the universe is just because we don't know who we're paying the check to every month for the things that we don't know, that we don't value it appropriately. The cost of success is the years of feeling like an idiot for things that you should have known by now. All the decisions that I made up to this point led me to here, and I don't regret my life, so I don't regret not knowing. I mean, if I started over, I'd be wealthier than I am now. You know what I mean? I can't go back in time, but if I could go back in time to talk to my 20-year-old self, and it wouldn't change the outcome of my life now because I would never roll that dice, is I would say there's two things that you don't understand that will massively change your life. You don't understand brand and you don't understand product. Because I was obsessive in my 20s on sales and marketing and what I would consider fast money. I had fast feedback loops. So I'd get better at sales and then immediately make more sales. I'd get better marketing, immediately make more money. And so I had this very fast feedback loop that gave me the misinformation or the false belief that this was the right path, but I was actually just playing the wrong game. Because it's kind of like in the Matrix when Neo says to Morpheus, so you're saying when I'm fast enough, I'll be able to dodge bullets? And he said, no, I'm saying when you're ready, you won't have to. Me being obsessive about sales and marketing was me trying to get faster and faster in the Matrix and not being the one and seeing the code for what it is, which is that if you make a product that's good enough, people will do the marketing and sales for you. If your brand is strong enough, people will make the association that they want to buy your stuff regardless of how good your copy and your headline and your landing pages and your conversion rate optimization and your media buying are. I kept getting really good at a game that if I knew how to master the big things that mattered would make those skills almost irrelevant.